before I wrote the offer, they let me know that there's another offer coming in tomorrow. It was a Sunday. I wrote the offer, got it signed, sent it to them. The next day, they countered my offer, and before I take it back to, no, the next day they waited for the other offer. The day after, they countered my offer, and before I get a counter to them, they rescinded the counter and said there's another offer coming. Then they waited for the other offer, it didn't come in 2 days, and then they asked me to go ahead and respond to the counter offer. And before I do it, they rescinded it again and said that now there's 4 offers on the property, and actually the licensee, who was the listing licensee, ended up selling it.
Yeah, that's why it's not a good way to do it.
Well, and this is where this, you know
What do you
what, you don't. And here's the challenge, this is why we teach you to get the listings, because the listing licensee is in the driver's seat. When you control the listings, you can, and you did everything you could do, they have every right to rescind the counter. They're within their right to do that. You know, they have every right to procure the highest and best offer for the seller, staying within the bounds of the law. This is why we say get the listings, because then you're the ticket scalper, you're the order taker, you're the one driving the bus, not at the mercy of the listing licensee bringing another offer.
Yeah. And meanwhile, your client just feels like you're getting jacked around.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
If I get an accepted offer back with changes made only to the bill of sale, do I have an accepted offer?
The answer is yes. And we had this situation just recently. I'm trying to think. It was Tara, had the buyer. And very interesting, she submitted an offer, got the thing back signed. There were a couple crossouts on the bill of sale from the listing agent. The seller did not want to relinquish the washer and dryer. Before Tara had a chance to do anything with that, she got an email from the listing licensee saying you are now in a multiple offer situation. The seller is rescinding their counter offer. And that is not a counter offer.
No.
So it was kind of interesting. Spent half the day getting that thing all straightened out, and the buyers walked anyway. But so that's a pretty easy answer right there. Okay.
I know this is a little more of a gray area, but instead of crossing it out on the bill of sale, if they had addressed that in the additional terms and conditions, would that have turned it into a counteroffer?
So then you're getting into the area where we for the whole reason we have a bill of sales, because mortgage lenders don't like to be lending money for washers and dryers, and they get upset when the deal falls apart because they didn't include the price of the $2,000 LG washer and dryer, you know, in the appraisal.
What if, on the purchase and sales form, there's an area where you can attach other forms listed? What if people attach the bill of sale to that? Does it become now part of the bundle?
They really shouldn't put it on there, and it does
But if they
sometimes.
do, because sometimes there's some high ticket items that are with or not with or being negotiated.
You know, and that really becomes a lender question. I wish people would not put it in there, because if it's not real estate, it shouldn't be on there.
The lender is going to let you know to take it off.
Go ahead.
My coach taught me something about 6 months ago we've been doing it. We don't do bill of sales anymore on our listings. We put in the MLS, no bill of sale accepted. We have our sellers at the time notate everything that stays with the property. And so we no longer accept bill of sales when we bring it off in my office. So, and it works. They have to add the washer and dryer, I believe, on there, just add it on to the property disclosure. But at that point, they're just saying everything that stays with the property.
So the property disclosure is disclosing what stays with the
Yeah,
property.
and if they want to negotiate anything after that, then I just give them each a piece of paper and they can write out their wish list.
And it's
and I say,
between those two.
I don't even want anything to do with it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The only time, if a buyer really wants something, and again, it's not great for the lender, but if they really want something and they have to have X on the bill of sale or they're not buying the house, I feel it's contingent. Sometimes they'll do a bill of sale and see if they'll do a little bit more money on the bill of sale. And put it in the contract in the additional terms contingent on acceptance of bill of sale.
Well, it's
It's not
interesting.
sure about
It's
that.
interesting because as a listing licensee, I think about the situation that you were dealing with that day on Tara's specific instance, and I don't know. I'm assuming that the listing licensee went ahead and pended the property anyway. But what if she hadn't? What if she'd done a disservice to the client, being a little too aggressive over a bill of sale, thinking they were going to draw out more offers, and then burden hands sometimes and left with nothing? Like, I mean, I get that you can really push the envelope as a listing licensee right now because the way the market is. And yet, remember, your job isn't to win, your job is to represent your client to the
Yes.
best of your ability and sell the property. So, I mean, I'm sure she sold it, but boy, you gotta really gauge those things in how much you're gonna push on the other side as well.
Next. Dave?
What are the steps and the timelines I should follow when listing a property on well and septic?
That's interesting because we've had a lot of discussion on this lately. And so I called up Jeff Garness yesterday to verify what I thought I knew on this. My advice is if you're going to list a property that's on well and septic, get it inspected right away. If it's in Anchorage, do everything except the water quality immediately because the well and septic results are good for 2 years. If you don't sell it within 2 years, you're getting fired anyway. And then get the water quality test done after you have an offer.
Cause that's, what's the timeline on?
90 days on the water quality. Okay? We recently had a deal, Michael was part of it, where if that had happened, probably would have stayed out of a big mess. It wasn't, I'm not saying it was Michael's fault, it was one of the agents involved in this, sorry. Didn't see that bus coming. But I think there's, you know, in an Anchorage, the truth is, most agents only deal with the property on well and septic, maybe once a year, something like that. And so we're always a little bit unsure, God, what are the rules, you know, what do I have to do? Everybody, you should bookmark Garness's website, and whenever you're gonna show a property that's on well and septic, whenever you're considering writing an offer on a property that's on well and septic, get in there and read the rules. And then like before you write an offer on a property that's on well and septic, you know, do a little research. Find out what the last report said on this place. Maybe it's got a really low flow, and ask your clients if they're okay with that before you even write the offer. Check out the neighborhood.
And you can pull up past reports on the website.
You know, for some reason, I think it's easier to get to it from Garness's website than it is through the Muni.
Probably is.
Yeah, but Garness has a lot of other information on there. Just real, I mean, I spent about a half an hour on his website yesterday, and then I called up Sonia, and those of you who talked to her, she's just so wonderful.
Yeah.
She's just a wealth of knowledge, and she is very, very helpful.
So how long does it take to get that check out on the well and septic?
Oh, that's a great question. You can plan on at least 3 weeks if there's no problems. I think we're in
In a perfect
about,
world.
on a deal I have, and guys, I hardly ever sell any real estate, and we have one that's on a well and septic, and it's an in-house deal, everybody's being perfectly cooperative. I think we're in about week 6 now of getting some of the septic issues taken care of. We've had a couple of extensions.
Well, and what if-
Just because there's been things wrong with it, you know, the repairs that haven't been made, we have to actually get a waiver from Chugach because the leach field extends into an electric right of way.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, well, it's been there ever since before the beginning, but nowadays they're requiring that you get a waiver for the easement.
But that's one of the challenges, if you delay, and especially if we're coming into the summer months,
Yeah.
let's say it does need work, now try and find an excavator.
Right.
Try and find an excavator, I
Yeah.
challenge you, and it's
Right.
August, because they are booked up and slammed up and up until snow flies. And now you need work done yesterday, when you could have had the work started or at least scheduled and planned when you got the results in May.
For those of you who've been around for a while, it used to be if there was a 5-acre parcel up on the hillside that had an old shack on it and it was on well and septic, people would say, well, I don't care about that, I'm just buying it as is. If it's in a municipality, you have to get the well and septic done. You have to. You cannot transfer title without getting it done. And, well, we had a little deal.
I have paper one of those here not too long ago.
Yeah, we had a little situation probably 3 or 4 years ago where one of our licensees, really it looked like a deliberate attempt to kind of bamboozle her, and she ended up paying, I think it was $5,000.
Well, it was the buyer agreed to buy it, like you said,
Yeah.
as is, with no contingencies about the well and septic, and then after it closed, came back and said that you didn't follow the law of
Right.
the municipality, and we want it done.
Yeah.
And so that was the issue. I mean, even if they waived their rights to it, the municipality can't transfer the property without it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to order the TOSA right away, you can get the well and septic inspection done, that's
Exactly.
good for 2 years, but I think the TOSA has an expiration on it.
The 90 days on the water quality is the only thing I would wait for, and that's a simple thing, like, pretty much any of the guys that do this, they can go up and get that done for you within a couple of days, and then figure a few days to go through the meeting. Okay?
The other thing I wanted to share about that,
Oh, yeah.
septic systems in an easement are a problem if your client changes from conventional to FHA. Because I had to have our septic system dug up and moved out of the easement because my client had an FHA loan and he
Yeah.
did not get it approved with that septic in the easement. So it's a big deal.
Okay. Good. Next, are there any more questions?
I have one off of that one.
Yeah.
There was a house on Hillside that was a foreclosure because the septic had failed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I don't know who ended up selling it or buying it, but, so the buyer would have had to pay for that before they closed?
If the bank wouldn't do it, yeah.
I had a short sale in the river, and short sales banks will not pay for loans up because it was a buyer expense.
I can't tell you,
Money was being sold as cash, it wasn't financing.
The whole thing is about transferring the deed.
But even then, they, before they would have,
Yep.
closed on it, they would have had.
And it's funny because there are some pockets, like way up Bear Valley, there's an area up there that is,
Very bad.
it does not fit in the muni for some reason as far as this goes. But,
Well, that's the problem, is you may get away with it because nobody enforces it at the closing.
right.
But it can come back and bite you. and
When
you
they
will
go
have
to
pay
sell
for
it.
Right.
Yeah, you just imagine that everybody says we're cool with it not
Right.
getting done, 5 years from
That
now,
doesn't work.
your buyer's
Yeah.
now a seller, and he finds out he's gotta put 20 grand into his, septic system. Yeah, you'll be getting a phone call. I'll be getting a phone call.
And let all your sellers know ahead of time too, because a lot of people who have loans septic, the seller took care of it when they bought it, they didn't even realize they have to spend $2 grand or
Mhm.
more to get it tested and
Right.
inspected.
Make sure it's on their net sheet.
Yeah, great
That's a
point.
good, that's actually a really
Yeah.
good point. Don't
Yeah.
forget
Remind
those,
you to
people
cover it.
forget those costs when
Mhm.
they're doing a net sheet, and that's a big ticket item. That could be the difference between having enough to close or writing a check to
If
close.
they have low water flow, and they have to turn running water, it can cost you more.
Yeah, and it's important that, Michael raised a good point, there's different requirements for different loan programs. FHA, what is it, 3 gallons a minute, is that the minimum, I think? You know, conventional, I think it's like half a gallon a minute, something like that, but there's difference between FHA and conventional, what flow rate's okay. So educate yourselves on that.
So restate the well and septic general costs and who pays.
It's typically a seller expense. I would tell your seller to expect to pay about $2,000 if there are no hiccups, you know, if there's no issues. And sometimes there are, man. I think we're about, this one I was mentioning that I'm involved in, we're about 5,000 into it now. And that's not, I mean, if the deal fails and the guy has to put in a $20,000 lift station or one of those sand filtration systems or Advantex systems, I've heard of $30,000 for them.
The most I've ever been on involved in was 33,
Yeah.
the system, and it was a Bear Valley system.
Mr. Sebring,
I ran into this
are you
issue.
pretty comfortable being in court like this? It's like.
Oh, I'm totally comfortable. I'm not sweating at all. I ran into this issue about a month ago, and I just want to know how you would handle it. There was a licensee here in our office that had a listing, and she had 2 of her own buyers that wanted to write competing offers on her own listing. How would you handle that so that she doesn't have to?
Absolutely get a third party involved then, because it really becomes too hairy then. Yeah, I would have them write offers, sealed envelope, and have a third party, like possibly me or one of the other agents in the office reviewing it then. Because what happens is, in competing bid situations, emotions can run really high, and you always end up with one party that's really kicked and feels like they got screwed.
I keep Prozac in my office in my new
Like there's a winner and a loser?
It's gone now.
Allison, call the pharmacist.
I've heard a really good one on that, I haven't met him, it was in, I think maybe Deb was talking about one of the classes, buyer's class we had. She said, yeah, obviously if you get third party it's better, but if they both are your buyers and want to work with you, fill out the contract, leave the price blank, tell them to fill it out and put it in a sealed envelope.
Right.
That was her
Sure.
suggestion, and that way
But
they.
the price isn't always the thing, you know, it's like how much you putting down, you have a good lender, when can you close?
What about the
You know,
acceleration type of loans?
Yeah, you know, so if it's both your own, if the listing agent's both of their buyers, it gets pretty sticky then, and, yeah,
I wouldn't do it, I'd pass this one.
Yeah.
Would you have somebody handle both buyers or just one? Somebody else
Boy,
has-
I'd
You know,
pass it both.
and then I would do both, because if the other one doesn't get it, they're gonna think that they had a disadvantage. Mark?
Okay, what recourse does a buyer have in a situation like this? It's during the $8,000 veterans refund. The septic, they ask that the buyer pay for the appraisal up front to be reimbursed at closing.
Yes.
The septic fails. They ask for the buyer to pay for the repairs and be reimbursed at closing. At closing, the buyer signs his documents and leaves, and before you can get back to the office, the selling listing agent licensee calls you and says, sorry, we're not closing. I never did a net sheet for them, and there's 17,000 in the hole, so it's not happening. So he's lost out on his inspection, has re-inspection. He's lost out on the money for the appraisal.
So
lost out on the
my
money
answer
for
to
the-
that is the buyer's agent, if he's doing his job really well, puts something in the amendments where you're agreeing to pay for these things up front, that if it fails to close through no fault of the buyer, the seller's going to reimburse him this money. And then you're in a situation like this where the seller has no money, then it becomes a small claims, or if it's above that, then attorneys get involved. But to take really good care of your client, that's the way you have to work it.
That's why we don't have access to the roof, to keep people from jumping off.
Sealed roof access.
Exactly.
Could you word it to where the seller pays it and gets reimbursed by the buyer at closing?
Obviously, the
Well, a
seller
lot of
doesn't
times the
have
seller
any
just
money.
doesn't have the money. See, coming from a listing perspective, we're seeing so many deals crater right at closing now because of financing issues, that I kind of like it from the listing side to have that in there. That if it fails to close through no fault of the seller.
But then if the buyer's the one that hired the contractor to go out there, and the seller doesn't have any money, who is that contractor gonna come after to pay for the bill?
Well, in that situation, you'll come after the buyer for sure, but if you can show the contractor something that says, hey, this didn't close and it wasn't my fault, if he's actually really coming after somebody like with a collection agency, then they're gonna go after the right person, I would think.
Or he could do a mechanics lien.
Do mechanics lien.
Well, mechanics lien on a house a guy can't afford to sell,
Yeah.
And it's only good for a year.
Yeah. Any more questions?
I wanted to ask you guys something, and this is something that Butch and I and Matt actually have kind of talked about. We have, one of the benefits here at Keller is we have a lot of people that are newer to the business, blended with some amazing, talented producers as well. I was curious, I would love for you guys to share with me, what do you think the broker's job is? Not you, you're not allowed to answer. Dave.
Just look pretty.
That's what he's good at.
And what is the broker's job description? What are his roles and responsibilities?
He's supposed to oversee the files, and basically, the buck stops here. If someone does something wrong, it's ultimately on the broker's shoulders. So he's basically kind of policing everyone in the company to see, that's why he reviews the files here, unlike some other places I've been. Because if you do something wrong, it comes back to him. And he also gets in the middle, if there's questions on legality, or if there's contract issues or contract questions, anything like that, he's the guy here, kind of the go-to guy.
What else? What is the broker's
I
responsibility?
want to interrupt one thing, Bill. Do you guys all really understand that if one of you is, say, convicted for real estate fraud, I lose my license?
No, nobody knows.
Yes.
Are you threatening us?
Well,
I'm educating you.
it's interesting because what we're seeing come across the desk, I really wanted to take this opportunity to kind of have a conversation about what is the broker's role within a real estate company. So you've mentioned the fact that he's responsible for reviewing files, the fact that when it comes to legality and things like that. What else is he responsible for?
Ultimately, the trust account.
Exactly, absolutely. Yeah, the integrity of the trust account. What else? You guys understand the real estate commission can come in at any time and audit our trust account.
Yes.
And his license is on the line for that, personally.
Yeah, that's not just my broker's license, it's my license to sell real estate.
Should
Here's-
we,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, don't be so afraid. A few years, some agents lost their licenses, but the brokers are still in position.
So here's why I go to this place. What I want you to really understand is that one of the things we're seeing as the business gets really complicated, and we have a real, we're really blessed at Keller Williams because we have a broker team that is led by Butch. We have Jacob available for you, we have Denny Wood available for you, we have Larry Malden available, and we have Ed Erickson. Now they all have their own designated responsibilities, but when it comes down to it, if you need an answer, you've got a list of people to call. What I want you, and I'm just gonna kind of be a little protective of our broker team here, and I want you to hear me okay on this in the balance. Butch is not here to handle every problem you have in a transaction.
That's true.
He's here to advise and counsel you, and when it gets to the place where there is no more solutions, then he's gonna, you know, and you've tried everything to be solution-based and you've had every conversation you can, he's not there to say, we're going back and forth on an offer and my buyer's upset because the washer and dryer got removed with a separate bill of sale. Can you talk to my client? You get, that's your job, right? You've got to learn to problem solve and be solution-based through it. What he gets into is, you know, earnest money disputes, advising you guys when you come to him and say, man, I need a clause. I'm writing this offer on a well and septic. I've never done a well and septic property before. What do I put in the additional terms and conditions so that I protect my client and get everything taken care of? But it's not necessarily just the, oh, I have a problem, and now he's going to go fix it for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he deals with some pretty intense stuff. And so I want you guys to recognize kind of the sacrifice that he does make, because now granted, I mean, he chooses to do it, and yet his ability to earn a living goes on the line every day.
Yeah.
It's not an extreme statement to say that. It is the truth. He's responsible for a trust account that honestly has over $800,000 in it. That's how much business you guys do. You guys are cranking. We have a very big trust account. Wells Fargo likes us a lot. So I just want you to understand kind of what his role is, and I was curious to sort of hear what you thought the role of the broker and the broker team was from an agent perspective, and maybe just kind of help clarify, you know, what you need, what he's there for, and what all his responsibilities truly are. So, yes, sir.
Okay, so you have broker team, you have broker. The broker team does not have the liabilities of broker.
Yes, they do. Larry Malden does in the Wasilla Business Center, and Ed Erickson does in the Eagle River Business Center. Am I saying that right? Yes.
Okay, but not the other.
And ultimately,
When they're in charge,
if they were
yes.
to get in trouble, it does come to.
Yeah, ultimately, it still falls up the food chain.
And don't misunderstand what Jennifer is saying here, especially for the newer agents. You know, you're writing an offer, you can't find maybe your team leader if you're on a team, you know, there's no experienced agent right around, and you absolutely just do not know how to phrase something that you want to put in there. You know, send me an email, a text, a call, stop by my office, that's cool. I would much rather have you do that before you get in trouble than after you get in trouble.
Well, and that's the second piece of what I wanted to share was, understand that we have an open door policy with our brokers, right? And it's much better to be proactive in any situation than reactive and trying to clean up a mess. So when you don't know the answer, ask the question. It's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer the questions. I'd rather you take 10 minutes and stop and say, boy, I'm really struggling on this, or I've never written this kind of offer, or I've never dealt with this before. Can you share with me how I should do it? Because odds are that 10 minutes is going to save us 10 hours down the road.
Yeah, or $10,000.
Or $10,000.
I mean, some of you people have seen my two signs, haven't you? Right? The two signs I have in my office.
They can't see it based on the glare of your hair.
Yeah. I have two signs. So when you come in, you get a chance to see the signs frequently. One says important, one says not important. So when you come in, listen to the important stuff. It's not the other agent won't do his job, I hate the appraiser, the handyman's a bum, on and on, you know, not important, not important. But the important part is, how do I take best care of my client? How do I stay within the law and the NAR guidelines? All right?
Absolutely. Any other questions for the judge before he vacates his
Love the hair,
seat?
Judge. Love the hair.
Are you going to take
Thank you very much.
All right.
Perfect timing, you guys are dismissed.
Take the price tag off the wig. Are you returning it?
Oh, there's